occasion, whilst living in college halls, where my roommate and I began to notice a bad smell. We had no clue what was causing it. We would leave the window open at night, preferring the cold to the smell. As you walked down the corridor of the college halls, the smell was beginning to seep out, but only from our room. Others began to notice it. The cleaning staff were especially concerned. We began to wonder, had we created any enemies that we didn't know about? And after a full week, the room was humming. Eventually, we could take it no more, and after several unsuccessful searches, we horrifyingly discovered a half-dead fish in a half-sealed plastic bag, hidden behind a wardrobe. The culprit for this fishy prank was miraculously is my now wife, who had got mustered up the courage after a friend visited that weekend. But enough about the fish, except to note that hypocrisy stinks just like gone off fish, doesn't it? We've all played games as kids, such as Simon Says, do what I say but not what I do, or we've played Let's Pretend. In reality, we all have very strong hypocrisy antennas. We can spot falsehood in others at 100 paces, even if it's not there. Hypocrisy radar is alive and well. Two-faced people get caught out eventually. Hypocrisy leaves a bad taste in our mouths, doesn't it? The odours of hypocrisy are apparent. Ambrose Bierce claims that hypocrisy is prejudice with a halo. Hypocrisy is a charge that is often levelled against the churchgoers of whatever shape or guise. Perhaps if a tiny scent of superiority is sensed among the pious, it can be very off-putting indeed, can't it? Perhaps we've all thought on occasions, if that is what Christianity looks like, I want no part in it. Are there any valid excuses for hypocrisy? For mask wearing, for image projection? I'll leave that for you to decide. But perhaps it's more noticeable in a place of worship or an institution of worship, as it's least expected in some ways to be found there, or is it? And if we find hypocrisy in such places, what does it say about Jesus? If many of his followers are blackened with reputations of being hypocrites, does hypocrisy flow naturally from being religious, or should it? A few questions just to ponder and to think about. But I want you to notice that it may surprise you that some of the things Jesus actually said about hypocrisy and who he spoke to. It may also shock you to notice how strongly he spoke to those he expected so much more from. Listen to some of the words he had to say to the religious leaders of his day. In Matthew 23, verse 25, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and dish, then the outside will be clean." If, like me, perhaps you'll actually feel like cheering Jesus on as he confronts the religious leaders, he uses very harsh words to expose them. Listen to how he continues. "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness." And perhaps the scariest words a church leader or religious leader can ever hear would be these. "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You yourselves do not enter, nor will you let those enter who are trying to." What that says about some forms of organized religions is horrendous, and it's perhaps saying that they're not all fit for purpose. In essence, Jesus is suggesting that these hypocritical, self-interested leaders are doing more harm than good. Rather than drawing people near to God, they're actually responsible for driving them away from God. Another observation can be this, that we mustn't then allow poor representations of God to adversely colour our view of God. Just because someone claims to represent God doesn't mean they represent him very well, or indeed may have very little representation of him, of who he really is. If Jesus was upset by such hypocrites, then he must also stand for something greater and purer. And if Jesus spoke out so clearly and forcefully, then he must desire passionately that we discover that God is not like that he's worth pursuing, and that true Christianity is indeed life-giving, as Jesus claimed it was. I want to suggest too that we have an internal hypocrisy detector, or we need to develop one. I love this provocative comment by Abraham Lincoln. Listen to this and chew on it. A hypocrite, he describes as the following. He says, hypocrite is the man who murdered both his parents, but pleaded for mercy on the grounds that he was an orphan. Let that sink in. But there's an ironic twist, isn't there, to being able to spot hypocrisy in everyone around us, except ourselves. It reminds me of something Jesus said later on. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? I love such vivid descriptive imagery. We would be hesitant to allow a surgeon to operate keyhole surgery on us if he came in with thick glasses and a pirate's eye patch. And in a sense, Jesus turns the tables on all of us with regards to hypocrisy, because it comes so naturally to us. It has infected us all. Yet we have much more difficulty in seeing our own inconsistencies than those around us. But the reality is that we're all guilty of wearing masks. We're all guilty of projecting an image of what we want people to see, or what we want people to think about us. Even if we manage to curb our actions and our words, we all have thoughts that we'd be ashamed of if they were found in the public domain. Worryingly, God knows every thought, he sees every action, and he hears every word. And yet he still wants something to do with us. See, the good news is that Jesus came as the Saviour. He came as the rescuer, to rescue us from ourselves, from our sin, and from our hypocrisy. You see, Jesus died in our place so that all who surrender to him, he will wipe the slate clean and breathe new spiritual life into us. This grace is never something we deserve, so there's never any grounds for superiority, only boasting both in what God has done and looking forward and expectantly to the transforming work that he has yet to do. So, is the church full of hypocrites? I suspect yes, and I'm one of them. But I'm a forgiven hypocrite who has surrendered his life to Jesus and has asked him to change me day by day. And that's the type of people that should populate the church. So is the church for perfect people? No. Do you have to be perfect before you go to a place of worship? No. I would suggest that only imperfect people are welcome. Can God really change people if they surrender to him? I believe he can, and he will, and he delights to do so. And I would encourage you to give it a go. I'm your host of Bundoran Bible Reflections, Matt Tuttleby. Great to be with you today.